have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now.
Seen for generations, a Dyad in the Force.
Julia?
Yeah, hi, I'm Julia, at JuliaChristine77 on TikTok. Not currently making videos, but if you want to watch my dumb little thoughts on my stories, that's currently what I'm doing. And also one half of Star Wars English Class podcast. The other half is also here, so I guess we are the full podcast together. We're recording a new episode this weekend about serialization and like soap opera comic runs, the idea of like a serialized story, and how Star Wars fits in with that. So I'm really excited about that.
Beautiful. And Star Wars English Class is always amazing. Yeah, other half of the Swinglish Dyad.
That's me. Hello, I'm Fern at Always Fern on TikTok. I was also sort of taking a little bit of a hiatus, but I think I hesitate to say I'm back, but I'm making videos more frequently again, so you can find me there.
The Kenobi train.
Oh, you should have said I hesitate to say I'm back, but I'm back.
But I'm back.
I ain't leaving.
Also, I can't wait for I can't wait for Obi-Wan to start and for Star Wars Celebration to hit. But after that, we'll be doing some Dyads and Dragons, and I believe Fern has joined that.
Yeah.
So we'll be moving on that pretty soon. That's really cool.
I am almost done with the final art on Hawthorne.
I am so excited to see them.
And then I have to move on to AJ Starkiller. If you don't follow him on TikTok, go follow Jedi Starkiller. But he's also part of our D&D Dyads and Dragons. He's gonna be playing like a Lion-O type of character.
Yeah, Leonin or something like that.
I believe so. I haven't started on his art yet, but it's going to be interesting.
Star Wars Lawyer Super shattered a $9.99 ramen drop. 12 days to celebration. Let's go. Unlimited ramen. Ha 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 ha.
I love the fact that it's me and Eggy laughing.
Yes.
Like, it's just like, and whenever Eggy laughs, it's either Eggy or Malik for sure. Like, it gets a cackle out of me every single time.
Yeah.
It's magical.
And then we're also planning, of course, the Battle of the Dyads, which is going to be our trivia tournament for the teams of 2. So, the onus doesn't fall on one person. You guys can talk it out and have a team struggle, so to speak. But yeah, celebration is going to be amazing. We're going to meet a lot of people. We're gonna have the Podwans final there. We're gonna have a whole house filled with creators reacting to Kenobi live. We're gonna try to
Not the
react
TikTok
it to
hype
live.
house.
Oh no, it's the
yeah.
Dyad hype house. I guess.
Oh yeah, baby! Invitation only.
I was
Yeah.
imagining like hype house, and then you cut to a bunch of nerds sitting quietly
No.
in a large Airbnb.
Quietly?
Julia, have you met me? Do you know my obsession about this show?
Hype
Do you think
house?
that's even
Yeah,
to be
but
close?
I think people's idea of hype house is not probably. It's a good thing. Like I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I just think it's probably going. There's probably going to be a lot less relationship drama and like dancing than you might expect normally.
Consider you could manufacture the relationship drama.
You could.
Well, we could also do the TikTok dancing. Come on.
Yeah,
Most
You
relationship
know us.
drama is done in the edit. So
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true. I didn't want to brush over it, but thank you, Chris, for the $10 ramen drop. We hope to see you. Well, not we hope. We are going to see you at Celebration, and we hope that you enjoy the ever-living hell out of that bowl of ramen. Like we found out last week or so that he's never had a bowl of ramen, not even like instant.
I feel like he called me poor by saying that. I mean, it's true.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so let's move on to our first and only topic of this episode. It's Brotherhood. The book by Mike Chen that released on the 10th this week is the book that finally gives us our canon business on Catanomoidia. And just so I can, open up the floor to you guys, we are the ones on time constraints, so you guys talk your heads off about, what this book means to you, and of course, everything that happens in the book. And we can start with part 1, which goes from the beginning all the way to, I suppose, before Obi-Wan leaves for Catanomoidia. So, I mean, I guess I'll start the conversation off, and I'll go to Julia first.
So it's funny. So Fern and I do debrief after every Star Wars book. So we have like a pre-show where we talk about what we think about the book. And so warmed up a little bit here. But thinking about part 1, I think, I was thinking earlier, you're talking about spoilers, and I was thinking about how I don't know that this is a book that really you can spoil, because a lot, the best things about it, in my opinion, are the internal emotional things. And so, it's interesting to find out what that business on Catanomoidia is. But, for me, the highlight of this book was not even, the plot. It was the relationships. It was the focus on the theme of mentorship. It was the internal inside the characters. And so, in this first part of this book, you get a couple of the main struggles. So, you said about about part 1, you get Anakin's knighting, and you see sort of his struggle with the perceived equality between him and Obi-Wan. And then obviously in the first part of the book, the most important thing that happens is the canonization of Ben, as a name that Satine gave to Obi-Wan. As I was watching A New Hope recently, I did slowly start to lose my mind, because Luke says Ben all the time, and I was like, if they don't, like, the fact that it, I don't know if this is ever going to be referenced anywhere else, and I'm like, this is blowing my mind. So yeah, the first part I think really just establishes the type of book that this is, which is a very introspective focus on these 4 characters. And I think specifically, I think a couple people, maybe even you, Pep, have said like this is an Obi-Wan book, and I would agree in terms of who sort of the main focus is. And so yeah, I'm gonna be honest, that's the most important thing that happens in part 1, if you ask me, is that canonization. That's the only thing from Legends I've ever actually cared about being canon, because it connects that relationship and Satine to the entire Skywalker saga, which is important to me. So
All right, who's next?
I'll be next because I slightly disagree with Julia. I think the most important thing in part 1 is the canonization of Siritachi's unnamed Padawan. We get to see this knighting ceremony, and these masters are gathered, and Siritachi is among them, which would indicate to us that she has a Padawan, who we can only imagine is one Ferris Olin, who in Legends does not make it to knighthood. He leaves the Jedi Order before he is knighted. So glad to see that things are working out better for him in canon. That was very for now.
Yeah,
right.
He's got about 3 years of
solid good years of good times
before.
Oh, I forgot. There's the Clone Wars.
It's fine. But that was very important and special to me. Similarly, there is an excellent Doctor Who reference, and I'm diving headfirst back into my old Doctor Who obsession, so that was exciting for me. But to be a little more serious, this book is very much about mentorship and about the way Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship is evolving now that they occupy similar roles, right? They are evolving from their relationship as master and apprentice to their relationship as equals, which I will say is a weird and sort of emotionally fraught thing for me to read as my students are about to graduate next week. My last day with them on campus was yesterday. And so, this happens every year because I teach seniors, but I'm sort of in that process of watching my students move on from being my students to more or less being my equals. And it's weird and strange, and it was cool to sort of explore that through this book.
Absolutely. Can I ask you really quickly, Sally Sparrow, do you think she'd make a great doctor?
That actress?
Or Sally Sparrow in general, I just loved that episode.
I also love that episode. I think that, I don't know, how would you imagine her becoming the Doctor? Because
exactly how she acts in the episode.
Exactly,
I just feel like
that,
it's like one of those episodes where she kind of stumbles into it. Because there was this natural air of curiosity about her in that episode, and so she stumbles into the TARDIS one day, and then I think that he has to regen into her in some way. I'll have to think about that. We'll go to Luke though.
Okay.
Also, real quick, last week was International Teachers Week, and we got 2 teachers on
That
the
is
show
true.
right now. So I just want to say thank you guys for what you do, because it's not the most glamorous work, but it's the most important work. So I appreciate y'all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Without you guys, there's no hope for the future. So there you go. But on that note, I'm going to disagree with both of you.
Fine.
I think the most important part of part 1 is in 2 things. First of all, Dexter Jettster being an absolute freaking boss.
Yeah.
Thank you. And number 2, and more importantly, Anakin and Padme's relationship being actually built out. and seeing like the cuteness and seeing that the awkwardness isn't always awkward. There are good times, and the fact that they like, it's hinted at that they, you know, did the nasty in like the like the speeder. Like that's just it just blows my mind how well Mike Chen writes all of these characters.
Yeah.
Somehow he writes them so perfectly. And it was good to see those parts, especially seeing like Anakin giving her the braid, and it's different. Like he put it in carbonite. Like that just blows my, like the little part in my head is just like exploding when I read that off and I listen to it.
That's merch.
That yeah. Yeah. Nice
Carbonite Padawan braid chopsticks.
Get it now. And then
nothing quite like hair.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
carbonite though. All right.
And then also all of the like legend stuff that is now canon. Like Keanu Mundi facing off with General Grievous like he does in the 2003 Clone Wars episode. Like it's just those small little details that people will gloss over that were just like when I read it I was like, wait, they didn't allow him to do that, right? Like he just snuck it in there. No, it just made my heart so happy with everything that happened. And
they also mentioned Mace Windu too.
Yes, later.
B2, yeah.
Yeah, later on. And also, like, I think it's very opening of what they do with the Nemoidians. Because up until this point, like, we just think, oh, they're on the separatist side. Whereas you get Roog, who is well done. I absolutely loved her and Mill. Mill is, like, one of my new favorite people of all time. And if we ever get, like, an Order 66 where she dies, I will check out. I will. No, I'm done.
Chances are. All right, I'm not gonna say it, but.
But that's what I liked.
I bet money that Mill is out.
We can pretend that Palpatine hadn't made the list yet. That right after she heads out, that's when he makes the list, and we can just decide that right now.
Yes, absolutely. I'm with Julia on this. And also,
there's an Excel document that he like just uploads.
I'm sorry, Choco. It's a Sheets document.
I was about to say, do we think he's more of an Excel guy or a Sheets guy?
He's a Sheets Palpatine guy.
Yeah.
Sheets Palpatine.
Also, Sun Dragon. Love that reference.
Sheets Palpatine.
Yeah. Really quickly,
yes, I would love to talk about how. I was just gonna say I would love to talk about how much this book is clearly influenced by the Revenge of the Sith novelization. I was saying to Julia earlier, it felt like they share the same genetic material, and I think that book is like so beautiful and so well crafted and is such a strong foundation to build upon. So it was cool to see, like, as we say when we're being like pretentious in creative writing workshops, like you can see Matthew Stover's fingerprints on this piece, and it's really, really cool.
Yes.
Just to go along with that, it's also cool that it also kind of removes, like, Labyrinth of Evil is not the greatest book. Opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of comments on my video about like, well, no, they retconned Labyrinth of Evil, and it's like we already had a Cat and Nemoidia business. And I'm just like, listen, like that wasn't satisfactory at all.
So yeah, that too. But you're absolutely right. There is clearly a deep love for the expanded universe, and that can very clearly be seen in all of this. Like, this was written by someone who grew up as a prequel sweaty, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Really quickly to everyone here, what are your thoughts on how much, knowing that Palpatine is the one that requested Padawans join the military effort, how much of that changes what people should be thinking about the Jedi Order?
I mean, I think I never in my mind thought that that was a choice they made anyway. Like, I didn't go into my understanding of that thinking they were like, yeah, let's get these kids out there. So to be completely honest, it's kind of the assumption I had already worked with And I think this is something, speaking of things Fern and I have talked about, this is not to like argue like child soldiers are good actually, but these are not normal children. And I think there's that aspect of it too, where like they are working, especially if you're working with a master, you're in their apprenticeship. Are they supposed to not learn to fight and to defend themselves in the middle of a war? Like there's quite a lot going on here that's complicated. And I think it's not an easy decision to make, but the idea of leaving them essentially not undefended, but I guess it's an example of like, I don't know what they would have done differently. And that's kind of how I feel about the entire situation is like, there's no way for them to win here. And so every decision they're making is about harm reduction and they're doing the best they can. They just don't realize how much of a trap they're in. Like, there is no right decision here. And I think a lot of people are still working under the assumption that there is a clear moral correct choice in this situation, and there isn't. There's only, and I think there's a desire from the sort of outside perspective, knowing what we know that they don't, to kind of want to shake them and be like, well, don't you realize Palpatine is doing X, Y, or Z? But they don't have that knowledge, and we're not living on the front lines every day, hearing about entire planets being taken over, right, or bombed, or whatever the case may be. So, I think it's another example of like, well, what do they do? Do they refuse? And if they refuse, like, what is the outcome of that? Do you think Palpatine's just gonna like, oh, you made the right choice, now I'll stop pursuing this? Like, no, he's not Palpatine. He's not gonna like. It's not a game you play where like you sort of out moral Palpatine. Like the rules are not, I think, as simple as we make them out to be. So I'm happy to see that it's very clearly a decision he made, but I don't think that's going to change people's minds who are sort of set on making the Jedi fulfill a level of like moral purity that is impossible in their situation.
That was great.
Well, yeah.
Beautifully stated.
And honestly, to piggyback off of Julia, just think about it. It's a clear choice by Palpatine to just get rid of the youth. Like the less Jedi that I have to deal with, the better. Right. And it makes sense from a story standpoint, because I mean, the less Jedi I have to deal with, the better off I am. So I mean, it just fits his MO perfectly.
It's kind of funny though, because it's like because I made the post. I made a post a while back, asking people what they thought the Jedi's responsibility was. I got tons of responses. Oh, they're the worst. They did this. They did that. I made another post saying, what do you think they should have done, given what they knew at the time? And then all the responses were like, well, I guess I could kind of see where they're going. I guess, yeah, this. And you're like, can you not reconcile?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing that I get from the Ahsoka trial. A lot of people are like knee jerk, like all over the Jedi Order for how they handled that. But again, it was like Palpatine saying, it's like, this is a military tribunal, even though Jedi died in that bombing, and the evidence stacked against her. The evidence was really, really put on. The evidence was really put on thick. And not a lot of people...
Alanis Baumgardner subscribes to the channel.
Thank you, Alanis. A lot of people don't blame Barriss enough for framing Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Versus blaming the Jedi Order for how they handled giving the trial over to the tribunal.
Yeah.
And
listen, I'd be pissed if the Jedi handle it in-house and then they're like, oh, she's working at another temple now. And you're like...
Well, that's the thing that like blows my mind. I'm like, you know what we need to do? We need to just protect our own and ignore law and trial and just throw all like I get yes, you should absolutely trust people, and if you know someone like Ahsoka, like this is something she wouldn't do in sort of investigation, and eventually it comes out, but it's kind of the idea that the Jedi have a responsibility for blind loyalty as opposed to making sure that they're not dealing with an active threat, like, yeah, I don't love how that was handled. It's they sort of there's an ostracization there that is uncomfortable, but at the same time, the idea that the solution to that is like, like you said, yeah, she works at a different temple now. Like all the criticisms of like associating the Jedi with like a Roman Catholic Church situation. I'm like, so do you want them to just like not actually address the crime that has happened? Like, what is your solution here? So yeah, I like, yeah, it's meant to be uncomfortable. It's meant to be from Ahsoka's point of view. She's feeling alienated. So if we saw that story from Obi-Wan's point of view, for example, it would probably be very different. And I think the shots are framed primarily from her looking up at the sort of Jedi, right? She feels disempowered. That's kind of the thematic message here. It's part of her overall arc. So I think I've thought a lot about this stuff. I'll stop talking about it now, but
Ram's House says, I mean, we normally engage with the chat, but you asked how
things are.
I think Fern is lagging.
And is now muted.
Fern, you're muted.
No, things are lagging on my end, but I do have things about I have things to say about the Jedi because, of course, I do. So I'm gonna try and leave the stream and join again, if that's all right.
Okay. Rams How asks a question in the chat. We're usually engaging with the chat on the show, but this is the Brotherhood talk, and we have limited time, so we cannot answer that question because that is a lengthy question or a lengthy answer to that question. We will come back to Fern on that Jedi Order question. Hello to Kiki. Thank you for tuning in to the show. CJ says, hey friends, I'm still reading but want to show my support to you all, so gonna lurk. Absolutely appreciate the /lurk. I guess once Fern gets back, we can circle back to her on what she needs to say about the Jedi Order, but we will move on from here to part 2, and we'll start with Luke this time. Basically, Obi-Wan leaves for Cata Nemoidia. We'll go to Fern first, but Obi-Wan leaves for Cata Nemoidia until the datapad and the comm link is exposed and he's arrested for the second time. That is part 2. So after Fern goes, Luke, go on ahead.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, I want to backtrack to the Jedi really quickly, and I want to speak to something Julia mentioned earlier, which is that, of course, the children in Star Wars are not normal children, and this doesn't extend just to the Jedi who have superpowers. This is in general, like Padme rules a planet at age 14, right? We're seeing in the High Republic, we're seeing very young people run their own business and have positions of immense power, and we have to remember that the norms of this world are not our norms. So things that we wouldn't expect a 17-year-old to be able to do in our world are not necessarily things 17-year-olds in this world are incapable of. All of that, regardless of all of that, I think this book, I think Brotherhood is really interested in optics and the message, and it almost reminds me of like an episode of The West Wing from time to time. They're really interested in this, what is the story going to be here, right? How is it going to look for Obi-Wan to be on this planet at this time? And that's what Palpatine is interested in too, right? He is interested in how does it look for the Jedi to have children on the battlefield. Never mind the fact that there are children running planets. There are children in, incredible positions of power throughout this galaxy. How does it look for the Jedi to have child soldiers? And I'm very interested in the way the narrative surrounding the Jedi changes over the course of the war and how Palpatine manipulates it to get to the point where they can be, deemed traitors, and then in such a short period of time, condemned and forgotten. And I think we're seeing the first steps of this here. So it was so interesting to me, and definitely affirmed a lot of what I've already believed about the Jedi, and it was cool to see it written out in this book.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Luke, part 2.
Part 2. Okay. Love Anakin trying to explain to younglings on the fly. absolutely love it because it's like it just harkens back. I love how they harken back to him complaining about getting a Padawan, and they mention it's so many times in this book, but he does such a good job like explaining things and like really getting down to like, yes, he's irritated at sometimes, but he truly understands like what it is to be that Padawan, you know what I mean? Especially with Mill, when he's like, I know something's off with her, I need to connect with her on a deeper meaning. And that was something that we don't really see much from Anakin. Like we get little bits and pieces of it from the Clone Wars because of Ahsoka, but like seeing him newly knighted, dealing with younglings and Padawans, younglings specifically, and just like all the high energy, and he's just like, oh my god, when is that other when is Din gonna get back in here? Like she's got it, like I can't handle this anymore. But he does such a great job, and it's so funny because I think it was Beth I was talking to Mara J. Skywalker, and we were talking about the book. And I think it was not a Kyber and Atlantis as well. We've had multiple conversations with a lot of people. But like I was told he would have made a great father. Like this is an example of him. If he wouldn't have turned to the dark side, him and Padme would have gone off. He would have been so good with Luke and Leia. Like just being able to connect with them. And it is just amazing. And then you get Obi-Wan and Anakin's like going from the Master and Apprentice, and then going to like he gives him the comm link, and he's just like that relationship. It's still kind of Master and Apprentice a little bit at this point, but it's like Obi-Wan's trying to figure out like how can I like stop, because he's trying not to make the same like Anakin, you can't do this, because now he realizes that they're on the same footing, they're on the same ground, and finding that easy medium is very interesting to see in this book, especially in part 2.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think Alanis just commented Anakin never wanted to be a teacher, but I firmly believe that at his core that's what he shined at most. And I think I agree, there's this sense of like teaching and mentorship being the core of this story, and I think it's interesting to see him developing the sort of pedagogy he's going to use with Ahsoka, and how much this experience damages what could have been a much more fruitful relationship, right? The idea that he opens up with Mill, and then it ends not poorly, but he sort of the idea that he is never able to, he obviously has a closeness with Ahsoka, but there's a sense of like, it's getting into part 3, so I won't exactly get to that now, but it's like he has this natural affinity, especially for people who are struggling in a way that he can relate to, and that's like, it's sort of the balance of teaching, right? You have to be able to connect to people on a sort of individual level and like have that sense of empathy for them, but it's finding also this sort of big picture and thinking about, okay, well, what do they actually need to learn regardless of like how I feel about them as a person. And so I think Obi-Wan and Anakin sort of represent those two almost extremes of teaching, where like Obi-Wan is worried about making sure that Anakin knows and does all the things that are correct, whereas Anakin is thinking about, what does this person need from me emotionally, and how can I reinforce them personally and make them feel like I'm listening to them, or sort of I'm here for them, and all of that stuff. And that's balance is really a struggle. And I also think it's funny to Mill an empath sensing that something's wrong with Anakin jokes. Like, because literally an empath. But part 2 is interesting. I mean, I found myself, and I think Fern would agree, like I really liked learning more about Kanan and Moya, especially about the sense of like disconnect between how they're viewed by the galaxy and like how they themselves have this rich culture. But I think the real highlight of the book is the internal minds of the characters. So in terms of like what's actually happening plot-wise, what's really stuck with me is like what the characters are thinking and processing. So this, I think, second part of the book is the most plot heavy, action heavy in terms of like investigating the bombing and all of that kind of stuff, which is very like West Wing, very political sort of drama, political thriller. I just am personally like, yeah, but when is Obi-Wan gonna have another sad thought? It was kind of like that's what I'm reading this book for, right? So
bad boy, come on.
That's kind of what I'm here for. I think that's kind of my thought about where I'm thinking about sort of part 2 going. I also just enjoy Obi-Wan meeting Asajj, and like it's just a really fun dynamic, and to see them meet for the first time is really exciting, and it's kind of exactly what you would expect for those two, where it's like this is inappropriate. You need to
Yes.
Why is this happening?
Yes.
Is why can you please just not?
Instant flirtation for sure, and it's not even subtle.
It's very uncomfortable for everyone else.
Yes.
Speaking of Mill, do you think that she also adds yet another cautionary tale to Anakin's inability to process attachment? Because she wasn't his Padawan, but she shows him that if you need to, you can leave. And then, fast forward to Ahsoka, you gotta leave. Both of these people who are exercising non-attachment by letting go and then just leaving to, for themselves, so that they can handle it in their own way. And Anakin is just stuck there, not just attached.
Anakin literally at one point thinks, "No, I will simply do everything." Like he literally has that thought later, and you're like, "Oh, buddy, okay."
Yeah, I mean that was one of my favorite points in this, because it actually jumps into his mind, and he goes through of like, oh, well, I'm loyal to Padme, I'm loyal to Palpatine, I'm loyal to the Jedi, I'm loyal to the Republic, and the cool thing is, all of these are heading in the same direction. So as long as I focus on any of them, they all get better, and that's Anakin's thought process. And you're like, they're all headed in slightly different directions. You're only going to be able to hang on for a little bit, and honey,
good thought.
We're laughing because it's if not, we
Tragedy.
would cry.
But he literally says like, oh, if I help the Jedi, then the war ends faster, and I spend more time with Padme.
Yeah, basically, like we can now live our lives. Hey,
Flawed logic there.
Just imagining the Phantom Menace extended cut where there's like an additional 30 minutes of Anakin looking back after Shmi was like, "Don't look back," and he's just like, "I can't help it."
Bobby, the Sun Dragon.
The Sun Dragon. Fern, part 2 for you.
Yeah. So I can basically second every single thing Julia said. This was, I think, the portion of the book I was least interested in because it was more plot driven and the politics were really interesting. There was a lot there that I need to comb back through. But I think structurally it makes sense at this point in the book to separate Obi-Wan and Anakin. They are exploring their new identities, no longer master and apprentice. They're exploring their new identities as Jedi at war, right? Within a republic at war. And that exploration is something they sort of need to be separated in order to complete, I guess, to whatever extent like you can complete that kind of exploration. And so again, structurally, I think it makes total sense to separate them. I think this is a good narrative move. However, I think I noticed that the moment I really tuned back in and was with the book again is when they reunite, which is sort of in that third section of the book, because they are a dynamic duo, right? And I mean that in a literal sense. They're dynamic. And so as much as I did love the sort of contemplation and introspection we get from each of them, and I love what we see from Anakin and Mill, I think I was just waiting for that shoe to drop and for the two of them to be in a scene together again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to get a brief cameo from Sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, really cool.
I do love what you're saying though. It was really important to separate them, to have them grow into these new roles, and it was really cool to see Anakin grappling with like, was I like this? Is this what I was doing to Obi-Wan? Is that why he was so angry all the time? Because when you watch, Attack of the Clones versus Revenge of the Sith, they do have a very, Obi-Wan has had it throughout all of Attack of the Clones. So like, we're here to rescue you, Master. Good job.
And I will say, not that like relatability should be the goal of any book, but that experience of someone who was once a student becoming a teacher and then looking at their own students and thinking, was I like this? Oh God, I think I was. Very relatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something I have in fact experienced.
I would be the Anakin of your guys' class. Not even gonna freaking lie. Not even gonna lie. Trying to pay attention, can't do it.
I don't think anybody
Not
there
really.
would doubt the truth of that statement.
Those, I mean, I always enjoy my Anakin students because I was an Obi-Wan and we're really annoying. Like I got so many messages in the past week being like, so Mike, am I gonna get an A? Because I see that I have an A. Is it an A? Did I get an A? I'm like, I literally. You can see your grade. Like what? I promise you. Like nothing's gonna happen. Like and that was me. Whereas the Anakins are like, cool. I got to be in this class. I like barely showed up for. Awesome. And then like,
Yep, that's me.
out.
Yep.
So
that's
like,
me.
and they were always more fun to have in class. So I think that's how I feel about my students personally.
I just want to see you bait and switch a student. Like it said they got an A, and then you're like,
Yeah, I like. What if I think
Gotcha.
I'm like? I'm not gonna change like that couple days between like them seeing their final grade and then like actually getting it on their transcripts. Like, is such a period of turmoil for them. And I'm like, it's gonna be okay. You'll survive. Not relatable to like surviving in wartime. Not a similar situation, but still a lot of anxiety.
every time you ask, your grade goes down.
Yeah, exactly. That's the secret.
For some reason, every time I think of it, if Luke is in my class, he's Liam. He's the one drawing the shades, and that's all he ever does. Just a small
within
thought.
the line. Stay within the line.
Any final thoughts on part 2, guys? We are killing the expeditious nature of this discussion. And I wish we had more time, but for not. Let's move on to part 3, and I will start with Choco this time. I know we want to give the floor to our guests, but then I'll just tell you, keep it short and simple. Choco. Of course, Anakin arrives with R2 all the way to the end of the book where they rescue the person in question. And then you can move it on to the next person of your choosing.
Yeah, I mean, I will keep mine, short, but yeah, we got love seeing Anakin and Ventress fight. I don't know, that just makes me really happy that we brought this in and we have these things explained. George was like, I don't know how I got this car. It's just that type of thing is funny to me.
I love how it was implicit too. It wasn't explicit. Yeah. It was just like it was too late,
Yeah. But I also thought like it was really interesting to see how Ventress influenced what's his face and like
Qatar.
really radicalized
Qatar. Yes.
That
That's
made me
very important.
really sad because I feel like I'm seeing stuff like that happen now, and it's and it's always been so fictional of like no regular human would think this type of thing, but like
Good one.
no, it's it's real though. Roog continues to be just like an awesome voice in pragmatism to a fault. And I think it was wildly inappropriate to bring Mill on this mission.
Yes, it was.
That's such a
It's
But she-
almost like Anakin, like you said, has a weird relationship with attachment and just can't seem to understand, what boundaries are. And if a child says, I want to come with you on this war mission, he's like, okay.
Fine, whatever. Just don't die, okay? Because I'd really hate for that to be
Yeah.
on my record, okay?
Eyes glow. There will be death. Then I will come.
Yeah, but in the end though, what Mill says to Anakin
Jesus.
really does hit me really hard, because every time we watch Revenge of the Sith, we always want Anakin to make a better decision, and every single piece of media is showing us more and more that he had the knowledge, he had the training, he had the examples, he had people telling him, if you need to do this, this is what you should do. And he just makes the wrong choice, and it hurts. But it also hammers down that it does come down to, none of us are responsible for the things, for outside forces that give us trauma, right? We're not responsible for them. Stuff has happened to him, and it's horrible. But at the same time, we are responsible for choosing to deal with it and how we choose to deal with it. And I think that's an important message. And I think Mill saw that and was like, please make the best choice. I gotta go, but please promise me.
Make good decisions.
Yeah.
I know. How do you feel about Luke?
That last part, when she's walking away and she's like, I really need to say something. And then she's like, screw it, I'm gonna go say it. And she says, you don't always need to be the sun dragon. Literal, and I shit you not, literal tears, because it is so heartbreaking to see, especially me being like Anakin being my favorite character. It's like, hey idiot, look, there's another reason of what you shouldn't be doing, all right? So here's just another thing, and it's so devastating, but also to see the dynamic, like when he shows up to save Obi-Wan. Like, I instantly went to, I don't understand why, but I went to the 2003 Clone Wars when the guy is like, how many Jedi? That scene when they jump over the wall and they start fighting. That's what I thought of. Like instantly, like they're back to back, they're fighting, and I was like, this just warms my freaking heart, because it's like, those two, like Obi-Wan thinks, oh, we might be better off apart, but then he starts to realize, no, we're better together. And the connection of Qui-Gon being like he finally gets it. He's like, now I understand why Qui-Gon wanted us to be together, because he saw what Obi-Wan was missing, saw what Anakin was missing, and he didn't mean to, probably. I mean, him dying definitely helped the situation. but he knew that these two were good for each other, and it sort of works out, but then doesn't. It's just the mistakes of Anakin, you know what I mean? But I love that in them, him really realizing that what is going to happen from here on out is for the best.
I just appreciate how deep of a look we get into Obi-Wan's thought process as a negotiator, as someone with constant strategies, and how his escape plan was set up from the first time he escaped. And then, like, of course, that's why it doesn't count. He had it under control the whole time. And I just want to see, like, from Tales of the Jedi, I would like to see an animated short of Anakin flipping in and the lightsaber hitting his butt, and then Obi-Wan's like, what are you doing?
What would have been hilarious is if that's how he got the scar. Like the lightsaber hits his face, and it's just somehow leaves a scar because like it comes in at like a different angle. It just hits him in the face. No. It's like, that was maybe my one gripe, is that we didn't really get that moment. And I was just like, but then again, like what Choco said, like the fight with Ventress also brought me back to their fight in 2003 Clone Wars. Like so much of this book gave me 2003 Clone Wars vibes. And I absolutely loved it. It's well done.
What about you, Fern?
So I have been flipping through my copy of the book to find quotes to pull and such, because there's so much I love about this final section, and so much I have to say about it. But I guess I will start with, so a big part of my understanding of Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship it's definitely built on stuff that's no longer canon, the Jude Watson stuff and similar. But the sense I get from their relationship is that sort of what Julia was describing earlier of Obi-Wan being this teacher who's really concerned with what his student needs to know, and Anakin being more concerned with what someone needs to hear, what they need on an emotional level, and Obi-Wan being maybe more interested in content and form and that sort of thing. I think a lot of what we see from their relationship is Obi-Wan feeling that he needs to present himself a certain way and conduct himself a certain way to be a role model for Anakin. And in reality, what Anakin needs is someone to say, oh, I've been where you've been, and I've had the same struggles you've had, and I understand, and you are okay. And there is a moment in this book that doesn't speak directly to that dynamic, but certainly reminded me of it. This is on page 288. All it took was leaving behind the bond of master and apprentice. For a moment, Obi-Wan's mind drifted from the mission, a volley of relentless questions whipping through. Was Anakin like this because Obi-Wan tried too hard to live up to Qui-Gon's dying request? If he had been more like Qui-Gon and less like what he thought a Jedi mentor should be, would Anakin have such defiance in him? Etc., etc. He goes on to sort of ponder Anakin and Padme's relationship. But I like that Obi-Wan is having this moment of self-reflection and reconsideration, and I think we see that reflection sort of play out throughout the rest of this book, although I think there are still moments where he still hesitates, right? He wants to have this conversation with Anakin about Anakin's relationship with Padme, and then he sees Satine, on the HoloNet, and can't bring himself to have this conversation. And Julia and I were talking about this earlier, and I was saying I don't think he was going to have that conversation one way or another. I think this is a really convenient excuse that presents itself of being so sort of shocked and flustered by seeing Satine and seeing her echo his words, and it provides a really convenient excuse for him to avoid a conversation that I think at the end of the day he's just not comfortable having. Yep. And so I think I could talk about this section forever, but I think I'll leave my thoughts there for now.
No, yeah.
Because time constraints.
No, yeah, you're definitely right. And it's so interesting because it builds on that Mandalore arc so much. Like, this book does a lot for the other media. And and also in season 7, will you at least tell Padme I said hello? Like, there's the first starts. Like, this is the first starting of him kind of understanding what Anakin is going through in that sense, and not wanting to have that conversation, absolutely. But I feel like he also thinks of if it like from the novelization, from the Revenge of the Sith novelization, he literally has a conversation with Padme. He goes, "I've known this forever, and what makes him happy makes me happy." And I feel like that could sometimes also be put into Obi-Wan, because at the end of the day, he just wants Anakin to be happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He also doesn't want to fail Qui-Gon. I think that's something Fern and I were talking about earlier in terms of like, well, why didn't Obi-Wan do X, Y, or Z? Why didn't he confront him? I'm like, because he feels responsible for him, and the idea that Qui-Gon has entrusted him with the Chosen One, and that he could have failed in any way, or that he, would not trust Anakin, or that, Qui-Gon's trust in Anakin was so strong. Like, is it disrespecting Qui-Gon's memory to have to suggest at all that Anakin is making mistakes or capable of making sort of these serious mistakes? So there's kind of that complication too, where there's so much thought about Qui-Gon and the responsibility. I mean, as Fern and I were talking earlier, Obi-Wan calls himself a conduit. Like, he's I'm just here to like get Anakin to the place where Qui-Gon couldn't, and like the thoughts that Obi-Wan has about himself in his own mind have given me a level of sadness I don't know what to do with. like the way he thinks about his relationship with Satine in his mind is so censored. Like, he's censoring himself in his own mind. He's sort of thinking about things in a way that is you can clearly, it seems like he's afraid he's being watched in some way because he's so concerned about, I think in still many ways concerned how he's coming across to Anakin, when, like Fern was saying, it's so obvious that Anakin does not need perfection in terms of like how Obi-Wan is seeing it, and Obi-Wan is simply, for whatever reason, unable to like make that level of emotional connection. I think out of fear of inadequacy and feeling like I owe it to Qui-Gon and to Anakin to be perfect, and they just have different ideas of what perfection looks like. The end of this book is an emotional beatdown. Just every chapter is just getting absolutely pummeled with different sort of emotional moments. I was the moment for me that really like actually made me cry was Obi-Wan asking the question of, when it came down to it, would Anakin make the right choice? And Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, and that really got to me because we know something he doesn't know. And it's that, yes, eventually he will make the right choice, but the amount of suffering that is going to come before that is really tough. But at the end of the day, like, hope is not lost, and I think that's a perfect encapsulation of Star Wars, right? Like, the idea that, yes, he will eventually make the right choice. Your faith and Qui-Gon's faith was not misplaced, and as much as it seems like, you know, it was. And so it's just a really, I just personally think that the ending of this is really beautiful, and that it's very sad. But that moment in particular, as a Return of the Jedi stan, was like, I have to take a moment to sit down here, because, you know, Obi-Wan probably thought until after he died, he thought that was wrong, that Anakin could not and did not make the right choice, and that really really hurts me.
Yeah. But Force Ghost Obi-Wan was like,
yes.
All right. I want to talk about this sort of undercurrent of dramatic irony that exists throughout this book, though, because there is so much we know that these characters do not. We know that, yes, someone is playing both sides and is trying to manufacture this war for their own benefit, and we know exactly who that is, and we know where everything is headed. And this is something else that I think the spirit of that I think also comes from this, like I said earlier, this sort of shared genetic material with the Revenge of the Sith novelization. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because there's a Tumblr post my friend sent me about tragedy and inevitability, and it's all these lines from different books and plays and poems about tragedy and inevitability, and one is pulled from the Revenge of the Sith novelization, and the line is something like, you know, this all happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's already done. Like, nothing can be changed now. And I mean, that is sort of the overwhelming sense I get from this book, is this sense of foreboding, I guess, and the sense that we know where this is all heading, but then also that sense of hope, because Obi-Wan's faith, like Julia said, is not misplaced, and in the end, when Anakin is called upon to do so, he's going to make the wrong choice first, and then eventually the right choice, and we just have to wait a little while for him to do that.
So here's my pitch for a certain point of view. Give Mike Chen the freaking Force Ghost moment where Obi-Wan gets Anakin to become a Force Ghost. I need that, and I need it now. Nobody else do it but Mike Chen. After this book, the way he's written them, the way that he was able to find the voices, like, it's just amazing. And I need that, and if they don't give it to Mike Chen, I might riot.
I'm gonna argue that Claudia Gray could write it, because she wrote that. She wrote the Qui-Gon Force Ghost one, but there's also in that same book when Obi-Wan dies and he's kind of going back and forth through his memories, and that story was beautifully written as well. I don't know who wrote that one.
It was Kevin Scott.
That was Kevin Scott? Time of Death, yes.
Yep. They're all very. I hope they do. I assume they're doing a Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view, and I'm not emotionally prepared for that at all. But that's a moment that I'm very much looking forward to reading about. I hope we get that story, and whoever writes it, because
we get it in Legends, and it's really well done in Legends. It's very well thought out, and the deep conversation. and Obi-Wan in that is like, yes, you did some terrible things, but I am at the end of the day, end of the day, proud of you.
Yeah.
And it's very emotional.
Shout out to DePaul for the 11-month resub. Hey, what's up, everybody? DePaul found out that the winner of your giveaway was Death Watch Podcast. So congratulations to them, and we hope to see you all at Star Wars Celebration.
Yes.
Speaking of Obi-Wan, I thought that it was very interesting how he always felt the turbulence in the Force when Anakin and Padme were together from Anakin. And I kind of feel like at that point all of the masters knew. Because if you were just a Jedi master, you would be able to sense that disturbance in the Force every day.
Yeah. He wasn't very good at hiding it.
I do wonder this though, because them being master and apprentice, there is a deeper connection there, right? And we saw that with Dooku and Yoda, where Dooku could still sense things about Yoda, and that was used in season 6 of Clone Wars. But also, I wonder about the Force sensitive people and I don't know, just getting boners, I guess. Do people sense I sense a disturbance?
I sense a disturbance. Or
every morning.
No, it's like Vader in episode 4. He's like, this hasn't been I sense a presence that I haven't felt since. Oh wait, that was this morning. It was my boner.
Jeez, guys.
You guys, come on.
I'm just saying, what emotional connection do these masters sense this when Obi-Wan looks at Siritachi? And when these Padawans are young, because we speak about it in the High Republic, where they're like, yeah, they look at each other, they want to do stuff, that's cool. Then we take them on separate missions, and eventually they just forget about it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right.
I'm saying
this is why we need the Obi-Wan novel, because if I don't get Qui-Gon in his head being like, oh, this is uncomfortable, oh boy, this is not a feeling I was ever expecting to have to, Obi-Wan having these types of feelings is really putting me somewhere that I just imagine Qui-Gon being so uncomfortable with that, and it makes me very happy. So that's, I think it is very funny. I know it's in the first part of the book where Obi-Wan's sneakily following Anakin and Padme around and spying on them, because that's very much a type of behavior that I think you can imagine Qui-Gon doing, being like, what is happening here? Oh no! Ooh, I should probably address this. I don't know what I want to do here. So. Yeah, that's off topic, but the end of this book is really good. I think the emotional denouement of this novel is incredibly strong, and you don't always have to be the Sun Dragon is a crime. It's a crime, and Mike Chen needs to pay for his crimes, because the way that Anakin's I absolutely do. It's that TikTok audio that's you don't have to be perfect or even good. You don't even have to be good. And Anakin's but I do. And he's I'm going to do everything. I will somehow successfully serve all of these conflicting loyalties, and it will be fine. Despite the fact that, again, he's had multiple people be you really can't do that. And he's don't worry about it. And it's just, yeah.
He does the old Skywalker. I got this.
It's cool. It's fine.
Yeah.
This is fine.
DePaul said there was a twist to the winner, and it's going to the runner-up. Who was the runner-up, DePaul? And Julia, speaking of the end of the book, do you think that the way that it ended, there is room for more Roog in the universe? Maybe in the Kenobi show.
I don't know what happened. So, Kidamoni is one of those planets that I'm really... Do we know what happens? Because I feel as a planet, I imagine they must have suffered pretty greatly. Like, I feel like they, considering how Palpatine deals with the Trade Federation people, like, I can't imagine the Kid and Amodia was a fun place to be during the Empire. So I think that is the story that I'm thinking about, is like, well, does her loyalty to her people and her planet continue? Like, I could very easily see her being someone who, ends up with almost a rebellion situation, right? Because it's clear where Palpatine, or the Emperor's sort of, he was using them, I think, is the thing that really hit me home most about the Neimoidians, is how they're being used, and the prejudice that the rest of the galaxy has towards them is being used. So Rue could very easily become a part of the Rebel Alliance in that way, in terms of how, she's fighting for her home. So that would be something I wouldn't be surprised to see. But I also wouldn't be surprised if she had a similar journey as Obi-Wan, where, like, man, I'm so sad that I failed my student, and I'm gonna just go be sad now for the rest of, I also think would make sense as an ending for her. So
Anyone else on Rook's future?
I like how open-ended it is. I think it's possible that we could see her in other things, but I like that final moment, that sort of epilogue where, Obi-Wan and Anakin emerge from the mists. It's very dramatic. It reminded me of something from a Doctor Who episode, to be completely honest. I could see that being the end of an episode of Doctor Who, and so I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good ending to the story, and I think obviously it leaves the door open for lots of possibilities in the future.
Yeah,
I don't see her showing up in Kenobi because we don't have enough episodes. Sorry, there's too many things that we have to focus on. But I will say that it in Legends, the Empire didn't do kindly to the planets that line themselves with the Separatists.
yeah,
They were heavily taxed. They were heavily dealt with, and I feel like they're gonna go that same route. And Julia saying, I agree with Julia saying, like, Rook is very much, she is all for her people, and if she sees the stuff that is happening to her people, she's gonna join the Rebel Alliance. That makes the most logical sense. Could we see her in Andor? I feel like would be better suited. Kenobi, we just have too many things that are going on. We have two main characters that are going to be colliding, and you don't want to mess with having different storylines. You know what I'm saying? There's just too much going on.
Yeah. Shout out to Thrice FX, who got the book today and is going to read it now. I think you have a great night ahead of you. We are practically out of time here, so if you guys have any final thoughts on Brotherhood, anything that you didn't get to express during the episode, go right ahead.
I got two things.
Anakin loves NASCAR and his wife.
Yes. Anakin is also an Elzar Mann-Kinney. He sees the Force in the same way as Elzar Mann. He sees it as an ocean. Also, I made myself sad at the end of this book thinking about Mill leaving the Order, which, like, good for her, making her own choices. But then I thought about Cantum, and I feel like Yoda was maybe thinking about Cantum Sai in that moment. And then I remembered that at this point, Cantum Sai is dead and has been for hundreds of years. And then I was sad.
Well,
that was one of my takeaways.
And then I said, what do you mean Cantum Sai is immortal? They're
still kicking around the Jedi Temple. No one can quite explain
they
it.
They solved the puzzle of non-attachment, so of course they're immortal.
Yes,
it's Cantum Sai, it's Gunji, and Hondo Onaka are eternal beings.
Yes.
Honestly, I would feel so safe in that company. Like, I would feel so, like, I can't imagine a more, like, I feel like I would, all of my, like, deepest fears, I would tell them, and then they would just, like, handle it. And I think, Hondo's there for chaos, but I think the three of I do truly think would handle any problem you had. Like, I think together they would make sure you were okay.
Probably.
Final thoughts, Luke?
This is the best canon book that I've read, and this might be recency bias. And
let me play something for you.
What? I mean, it's not really a hot take. Anybody that knows me knows that I love these characters. But the way it was written, the way it spoke to me, has me 10 times more excited about what we're getting in both Kenobi and Padawan.
Because of Obi-Wan.
Because of Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan?
But, yeah, because it is so great, and I everybody's gonna call me a homer, but I literally this is my until they make an Ahsoka Anakin book that's kind of like this, because I feel like the trilogy should be, we've gotten Master and Apprentice, we've gotten Brotherhood, now give us Ahsoka Anakin sometime. I know there's a lot that we've done with the Clone Wars, but the war is expansive. You could tell a story where it's just her and him going on a secret mission. Like, it's totally plausible. And have Mike Chen write that too, because I'm all about Mike Chen writing everything now.
Hey, there's the whole D Squad arc. Kind of what are Anakin and Ahsoka doing during that time?
Dude, D Squad, yeah, absolutely.
Choco, any final thoughts before we give them the floor for plugs?
Oh man, I really did enjoy this book. It's not quite my favorite, but it's definitely up there. I think this is an absolute must read for anyone who loves the Clone Wars, anyone who loves the prequels, anyone who's excited for Obi-Wan, anyone who loves Return of the Jedi, and anyone who is an Anakin fan. Also, anyone who
loves Star Wars.
Read Queen's Hope.
Yes,
this is true.
And anyone who is apprehensive about jumping onto canon books because they were a big expanded universe fan. So there's a lot to love here, and I love your guys' thoughts. This has been amazing, and I can't wait to talk to you guys once Obi-Wan comes out. I'm gonna be checking in on Julia every week just to make sure she's inspired.
I'm gonna be in a foreign country for the first 2 episodes. I'm gonna be in the UK, so it actually worked out, because if I wasn't there, it would be 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. and I was so mad about that. But 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. is a much better time frame to sit down and watch TV. But I think it'll be good that I'll be an ocean away from Celebration and all of that, because I think that level of stimulation for me would be a lot. I'd be I need an entire ocean between me and the rest of the Star Wars fandom so I can emotionally process the first 2 episodes of this show and deal with my feelings. So I'll be fine. It's fine. I'll be fine. If they do mention Satine, I will never shut up, is the problem. I will never stop talking about it. So.
Well, I mean, jumping off of that, where can people find you? And let us know if you're working on anything that we should look forward to.
Mm-hmm. You can find me on TikTok at JuliaChristine77. Not making videos at the moment, but doing some stories and stuff. And like I said, we're recording Star Wars English class this weekend, tomorrow actually, I think. Yeah, tomorrow. We're talking about Star Wars as a serial, as a serialized story. And I'm really, really excited about this episode because I found some really good stuff on how Star Wars functions as a serialized narrative, and I think it's going to be a good one. And then I don't know about TikTok plans, but I almost certainly am going to be making a lot of Obi-Wan content here in the future. So if you want to know all the stuff canonically that he's in, all the stories about him, I do have a link in my bio on TikTok that has a whole list of all of his canon stories. So
definitely go check that out. The Canon Obi-Wan Guide. It's a great series by Julia. Fern, where can people find you? Do you have any plugs?
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok at AlwaysFern, and anywhere you get your podcasts for Star Wars English class. I'm really excited for tomorrow's episode. Julia has sent me some delightful articles.
I just keep sending academic articles.
And it's great, and I can't wait to talk about them. I am also doing a D&D podcast called Original Characters, which is not a D&D podcast where I play D&D, but where I invite guests on to talk about their player characters. It's sort of an intermittent project for me. I make episodes when I feel like it, so therefore there's up now and more coming down the pipe. I will be doing, what is the name of the D&D podcast that we're done?
Dyads and Dragons.
Dyads and Dragons. Okay, got it. I will be working on that shortly. And I think that's it for stuff I'm plugging.
Awesome. And Luke.
I've got a
Last
lot
but
going
certainly
on.
least.
Yeah. Obi-Wan will break me. That's all I gotta say. No, I've got more to say. This is just the Obi-Wan hype train is we're pulling in. We're everybody get on or everybody get off.
It's hot, sad Obi-Wan summer.
Yeah.
Hot sad
yeah.
Obi-Wan summer.
A hot Anakin Vader deep in depression summer as well.
Okay.
Don't forget about that. So we are also we are deep into the trivia tournament. We just filmed the final match. I'm not gonna say who won. Chart did spoil it on Thursday about who was in the match, but I'm not gonna bring that up. But it was amazing. You guys want to check out the other matches. They're fantastic. We do have the final, but I'm not going to say who it is, but it's going to make for an interesting match. So be on the lookout for that. Every Thursday, Clone Wars. This week we are talking... Man, it's really bad that I don't remember what arc we're talking about. But every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find me on TikTok, The Pod Once Podcast, Instagram, The Pod Once Pod, and on Twitter at The Pod Once Podcast.
Awesome. And I believe tonight's match that's posted on the channel now is me versus Harith?
Yes. And you guys can go check out Harith and Element battling it out, trash talking. Probably one of the more entertaining
we all know that whoever finishes all of the rounds on top has to go up against me.
Is that coming from you or is that coming from Luke?
Oh my god.
Yes! Choco. Good play.
You made a belt?
Yes.
The time is now. The time is
Wow.
now.
Sorry, Choco. You're gonna have to get the spinner later. Add it on. I'm sorry, but this bad boy's hefty, and and we're gonna make a spectacle out of this final. Like it's gonna be fantastic.
Provided I ever actually get to hold the belt myself.
No, you are. I'm bringing it with me.
Okay. I'll give her a...
What, you just think I wasn't gonna? I was just gonna show this off and then not bring it to you?
Oh no! I mean, we have a final match, so I'll have it. Don't know if I'll be bringing it home, but I'm gonna do my.
You'll get it for an entrance, but then it's got to go back with us until after that match.
All right. Before we send it off to Choco to close things out, I would like to thank our channel members of Squadron 7, without which we could not continue to do this on a weekly basis. You guys, thank you for your love and support and for being members of the channel. I think we have a second page, and we do. Thank you guys so much for being members of Squadron 7. Choco, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, check out the High Ground podcast. It happens every Wednesdays on 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. This week we will be talking about Rogue One. There should be a good one. I got Chase coming on for that. I got Stardust M. We have some. It'll be a great episode. So we would be honored if you would join us.
Absolutely, and I have some parting words for you guys as well. Small little update, very vague update. Me and Lord of the Rings are going to get very close to each other in the coming weeks, and you'll know more. But that'll do it for this episode of Dyad in the Force. Episode 76.
You can't just do that to me.
I can and I will.
You're getting married to Lord of the Rings? Congratulations.
Oh my God, congrats.
Where is our invitation?
Yeah, he's wearing the one ring. Just kidding. He would be just saying this.
I mean, we'll take it to the DMs, but as of now, we are out of time. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you to Fern, Julia, and Luke for joining us for this book discussion. Next time will be Shadows of the Sith, and I'm pretty sure Chris has already signed up for that one. And we'll take it from there. But that's the end. On to the next one.
For Light and for Life.
We are all the Republic.
And may the Force be with you.